All right. Is Gervonta Tank Davis a monster? Now, I think many people would say in the ring, yes. And let me disclaim real quick. I'm definitely not condoning anybody's, not just Tank, anybody's, immoral behaviors, or actions at all whatsoever. But I think the whole purpose of this video is to just offer a different perspective, a broader perspective, because I feel many people are unrighteously judging Tank. So, is Tank Davis a monster? I think many people would say in the ring, yes, he's a very good boxer. He's a beast. Very skilled. Highly entertaining. Vice, so on and so on. But outside the ring, a lot of people, I've heard a lot of people say that he's a monster outside of the ring because of the recent accusations that he's received. You know, he was on the run not too long ago for a domestic violence case, and that's not his first one. All started as far as in the public eye. It all started, during that basketball game. I'm not sure how many people remember, but like years ago, Tank Davis was caught on camera, pretty much just like forcefully and aggressively pushing some girl out of a basketball game. I think it must have been his girlfriend or something, but she was. I guess story was she was there with some other dude. Tank got jealous, showed up, walked right up to her. You can see it on camera. Walked right up to her, kind of tempted to pull it up, but at the same time, why? You can just look it up. He walked up. He grabbed her. He looked all extra mad. He's pushing her out the pushing her out the arena. Like I think he even walked across the basketball court. Not quite. It's been a long time. So I think as far as like public perception, it stemmed from there. People wondering if Tank, abuses females, if he hits women, rightfully so. Get caught on camera acting very aggressively like that with a girl, then people are gonna start to wonder. So fast forward to today, as of late, he went on the run because he had another domestic charge, and to be honest, not quite sure why he went on the run. I mean, you might think it's kind of obvious, like he went on the run. He wasn't trying to he wasn't trying to go to jail. But that kind of doesn't make any sense. Like it's like, come on, you're going on the run. You're gonna jeopardize your entire career. Like I don't know. That's to me. That's kind of just. Was he told? Was he advised to go on the run? You know, until things kind of like not blown over because he's on the run, but it's like a is he until things kind of settle down a little bit? Maybe the victim, the quote unquote victim, like will put out a statement saying, oh, no, he didn't abuse me because she already in previous cases, because Tank, like I said, been through this a couple times. Like the other girl, the in the other case, I'm not sure if it's the same girl either. Not sure if it's the same girl, but she dropped the charges or she didn't show up to court. Anybody who's been through things like this, like that, you could I mean, if the girl doesn't show up for court, then obviously it's dropped. Like these days the court systems are picking it up. The state's picking it up regardless if she doesn't show up to court. I don't want to digress. It's just not a lawyer here, but so it all stemmed from there. Fast forward to today, he was on the run. Now he's not. Now he's back. In good standing with the law, you could say. But he's not in good standing with the people. Many people are, especially shout out to shout out to a couple people from boxing rap star knowledge. I was in the chat room, talking to a couple people, and somebody was saying how Tank is like many people are like very upset with Tank from the Baltimore area, especially. Because that's where Tank's from. So a lot of people are just like, man, you just they're probably making the Baltimore area, look bad. Tank, that's probably what they're thinking too. And then many people I'm sure like know him probably personally, but So yeah, like a lot of people are not happy with Tank right now. Pretty upset with him. But then you got some people that are like unfairly and unrighteously judging his actions, judging him personally, to be like a bad person, a horrible person, a monster because of what he's going through. And that's what I feel isn't right whatsoever. That's what I feel like people really need to take a step back and, have the have the patience and the decency and the consideration to at least look things from another perspective. And I understand though, many people can't look at it from another perspective because they've never been in those situations. They've never even known anybody to be in those situations. You know, they're probably told from people who never been in those situations that people are very, very wrong for involving themselves in those situations. So if anything, that's pretty much what I'm trying to like do here, just offer like that broader perspective for someone who doesn't really understand, who's never been part of that world. Okay, so for example, imagine being outside, you and your friend smoking a cigarette, you know, having a drink, and a car pulls up, all like all fast, pull up to the driveway, all speedily, and people jump out, right? Jump out of the car. And it's three girls, two dudes. They all jump out and they're all fighting each other, like physically fighting each other. I'm talking about like two girls rolling on the ground with the dudes. They're wrestling. You see the girls throwing punches. The dudes like not really throwing full punches, but he's kind of still trying to like get a little something in there, but he's not being too violent. The other girl's trying to hit the other dude in the head with a beer bottle, and he's like just trying to get away and trying to like push her and stuff. Like you know, things and things honestly could have been way worse. But the fact that okay, so those girls were my family members, and the dudes were my boys. So things probably could have got worse if me and my friend went there because I think the guys weren't, the my boys at the time, they weren't trying to, like put their hands like ball up their fists and like really punch at the girls because the girls were though they were like throwing blows, and honestly, the girls weren't throwing the most vicious blows either because all those girls could fight. They really could. Like I've seen them actually throw like vicious blows. So, but still, the fact is, it's just a bunch of. I mean, the beer bottles being swung at dudes' heads and stuff. It's like so. It was still pretty hectic and still pretty hostile. So I'm sitting there, just like, what the heck is going on? So there's many, many environments, communities, towns, full blown towns where that behavior like that is like seen as a norm, and it seems to be like accepted by many people that is just seen as a norm, like that's just normal. Shit, I just got into it with my girl a couple weeks ago, like that's the way of thinking, like it's just you see that and it's that you grow up with that and it's truly just it desensitizes you, you know. So that's the reason why I think I can even offer this different perspective is because like I've seen, and that's just one occasion. That's just one occasion. I've seen girls just out of nowhere just pick up a lamp and try to hit a dude in the head with it, and he didn't do a thing. I'm talking about he was just chilling. We're sitting there just kicking it, not doing anything, just talking and shit, watching a movie. The girl walks in, just ready to fight, and just picks up a lamp like, yeah, and just, so I'm like, so yes, there's many, many different, environments and there's many different, circumstances that causes a person to do those type of things. So for someone to sit there and just like, deem another person to be immoral or to be some type of wicked person, that is that's very unintelligent, truly. And I don't want to digress on why that's a very bad move on that person's part. I mean, it could just lead to all kinds of just it could lead to delusion at the end of the day. It could lead to, you know, pride. It can so many things. So I'm saying that's very unintelligent for a person to sit there and just just jump to conclusions, be hasty, unrighteously judge a person. Especially so for example, like if you grew up if you grew up in an environment in a household where there was like a bunch of alcoholics or people doing all kinds of drugs, and then you get into it, you start doing alcohol, you start doing drugs and start getting into alcohol, you become addicted, and then you meet you meet some people later on down your life, you befriend them, and they start realizing like you got an alcohol problem, and then they're like, man, just get over it. Like you gotta man up. You gotta just get over those substances. You don't let those substances rule you. Whatever they could say. Just it's like you never, and those people never once had a family member, just offer them a drink of alcohol. There's kids who like have family members telling them to drink at the age of 11. So imagine a person who's never even been around an alcoholic trying to tell another person to get over their alcohol addiction when that person grew up around other alcoholics. You know what I mean? That's not trying to be a little confusing with my analogy, but yeah. So I feel like it's the same thing. Like unless you grew up around that type of behavior and that type of people, then you really don't have any room to sit there and deem a person to be a bad person. Everyone has a right to criticize, for sure. Everyone has a right to criticize. But there has to come a point in your criticism where you're like, you know what though, I feel like those actions were bad, because you do gotta criticize a person's actions, because sometimes it's gonna protect you. It really is. Like the good word says, the robbery of the wicked shall destroy them because they refuse to do judgment. So yes, you do gotta, if a person is acting bad, you know what I mean, then yes, you gotta be like, hey, let's go ahead and step away from this person before he ends up, doing something to me that's not good. So yeah, everyone has the right to, to criticize, actions, but to sit there and like, like label somebody to be a bad person or a monster or a horrible person for something that you heard about, that right there is, like I said, it's wrong, it's unintelligent, and it's gonna mislead you at the end of the day. It really is, because again, you don't know how that person grew up, and you don't know who that person is dealing with. People act like women aren't the cause of many good men's downfall. People act like that's not a thing. It's very much a thing. So it's like I really believe people need to just pull it back a little bit when it comes to Tank. Stop assuming that we know it all when it comes to what he's going through. He's obviously going through a lot of things. I see Tank, and I feel like he's I feel like he's young. Personally, I don't feel like I truly matured. And honestly, I don't feel like I truly matured. Like the first steps of maturity was like in my early 30s. And then like my spiritual maturity, that was 3 days ago. For real though. So it's like Tank, he still has some maturing to do, especially, man, like being in that spotlight, having all that money. That people, some would think that advances a person's maturity, but I personally believe that holds it restricts a person's maturity. It sets him back because now he has more things to worry about other than himself, in his growing, in his being, you know. So the point of this video was just to pretty much just say we got to really stop, and as people stop and not be so hasty when it comes to judgment of people's actions. especially not judging a person, person's, being, person's soul. Yeah. So, anyways, I just feel like I'd give my perspective on that, and yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Vaya con Dios. Peace.